What's good? Remember I told y'all every time I get Ethiopian food, I'm gonna do a video. Put shit in, shit come out. Random shit in my mouth, random shit out my mouth. At the same damn time. The same damn time. You know. So, sometimes I'll be planning my talks out, sort of. Or something really will spark my brain. What? The dog is sitting here begging for some injera. She don't know. Like, I only got one serving of injera. I should have got two. Trying to play me. Oh my God. Anyway. Today was a good day. Like I said, some days I plan it. But I've been floating on through so many things lately that I think if I tried to plan a conversation, it would go so sideways. So I'm just gonna talk. We'll see what come up. This food goes down. But yeah. So today, my homie invited me over to get some teas. This is an interesting space. Causes me to live a slightly antisocial life. I don't go. I don't live in the city proper. So there's really no social gathering places out here. And then the city I'm in is like really an interesting vortex of energy anyway. And then my friends that I do have are farmers or folks with children. So their schedule will be so packed and they exhausted. And then car, so transportation issues add compound that. But we work through it. Plus I'm homeschooling, so most days I be focused on little mama. But so opportunities to get out the house where it can happen in like a short window of time, I take advantage of. But got blessed with 10 jars of herbs today for tea making and medicine making. My dad joked, was like, why ain't you getting no money? This is money. I mean, this is what I spend money on. If I was to spend money on shit, it would be herbs. It would be things to make things with, to make my teas with, to make teas for other people with. And why not have the trade and barter? Like, we get so confused sometimes about what we feel is important. And we would think of things, like when you tell people trade and barter, they be like, give me the cash. And I get it. Because if that person doesn't have something that you need or desire, it might be easier to get the cash to go find what you need or desire. But then that comes to how you shaping your village. Are you shaping your village around people who can connect you to the things that you want, so that you can find other currency exchanges, energy exchanges to get the things that you need and want, without it having to be through fiat, through this monopoly money, right? Can you get what you need outside of what we've been taught is the only way to get stuff? especially as we shift to seeing how the currency is changing, mediums and the digitalness and the social currency. Like, there's people out there that get loans based on how popular they are on Instagram. And it got shit to do with their ability to repay money. They're getting capital based off being an influencer. How many people in the social networking sphere can they get to follow them and hang on their every word? You know? That shit with Kanye getting his money and his accounts taken away because of how he's acting. And then they telling you that China has like the social engineering concepts behind their currency and how they reward or punish people based on just social presence. And when you see like Community, the TV show with Danny Glover and Donald Glover, they had an episode that was kind of like that Black Mirror episode that was like with the Facebook groupings, like you were ranked based on your social standing, and different people from the 5-star group to the 4-star group. Thank you.
I'm gonna run down to Kalamazoo Tea and Mom, I'll be back.
Okay. So Black Mirror had that episode where everybody's social ranking determined their status in the world, what they had access to, you know, their housing they had access to, and the jobs they had access to. And if you weren't ranked, you were a social pariah, like you couldn't participate in society. Like you were, you know, outskirted, kind of like fucking, what's that? What's the movie? It's gonna come to me. Divergent, kind of like that. Like, I mean, that wasn't using social media, but it kind of was, since when you found out that everybody was getting tracked and looked at, like, however they place you, what they determine. And if you ain't placed, you out. You don't get to participate in this shit. But so if they're doing that, and I don't know, people like this movie's just TV, but if they're doing that there, and we see little peaks over here, then we just have to figure out ways to not participate in that way, right? How do you operate outside of that? How do you create your village, your community, in a way that doesn't force you to be reliant on that? Everybody's talking about sustainability. Off-grid this, off-grid that. And some people, I don't think we understand how deep that can go, or what you would need to have, or the things that you would need to sacrifice in order for that to be maintained, you know? Because even from the standpoint of, like, just if we talking about even participating in this capitalism, like, even as, like, community black-owned businesses or whatever, when we start talking about we don't have production, we don't have manufacturing, we don't have logistics down, we rely on other companies that do these things to supply us. And if they ever get cut off, most people's business is getting cut off because people are not supplying themselves from the front end. You know, you're not making the products. You're not the real plug, you know. If your business is making t-shirts and you're not weaving the fabric to sew the t-shirts up, somebody stops doing that shit, what you gonna do? You know, mason jars. And if you rely on these things where you have to go to a big box store to get your supplies, then what you gonna do when they get cut off? You know, if you're not producing the things necessary for your business or other people's business to survive, right? So then how do we go about making ourselves into sustainable villages? How do we, you know, really understand what it would mean to be without it if it ever came down to it by choice or by force, you know, by circumstance? Because there's people who choose it right now, here and now. And then there's people who are prepping for it should it happen. And then there are people who are theorized but are not prepared. Or they think that, you know, just having some tomato garden, like, not to say that that's starting off with something like learning how to grow a food item or a few food items isn't necessary. But if you're not prepared for what happens when you can't grow, or what happens when you can't in the season, because it's just not the season. Many of y'all live in places where, you know, you can't grow year round. So what you gonna do? You know how to can, you know how to preserve, you know how to, you know, stack, you know, your dry goods. Like, shoot, can you grow some rice? You know how to get the grains that you need. Like, if it was to get cut off, what you gonna do? And are you stacked then for right now, like the preppers are? Do you know somebody in your community that knows how to get you what you need? Hey, Pooh.
Mom, guess what?
Yes.
The lady I was fixing my bowl almost put cheese on my bowl.
Oh, what?
I said lettuce, not cheese.
Oh, lettuce, not cheese.
She didn't. I was like, lettuce.
But yeah, so that's what my thoughts were because I got blessed with teas today. And it keeps preparing myself for understanding what village dynamics look like. Especially, like I said, the conversation I had with Pops, like, what you gonna do? Like, okay, they tackle cancer how?
It's a football game. It's pink out at the game.
You know what I'm saying? They tackle cancer by doing what?
Huh?
They're tackling cancer by doing what?
Playing football?
Yeah. Because that's going to stop the cancer. But yeah. But that's why, like, having skill sets, resources that you have in your tool belt, what you know, what can you learn? What do you bring to your own table? Like, people be like, what do you bring to this table? What do you know how to do for yourself? If you had to do it for yourself, even though should not be the goal.
Eat and work.
The goal should be to have dynamics where it's interdependent with other people who thinking on the same wavelength as you, vibrating the way you are. Collective energy. But say it's not ready. Say you're not in a position to. What can you do for yourself right now? Regardless if there's people around you doing it. You know? Because when you start to have the mindset of preparation, prior preparation prevents piss poor performance, right? Then you set yourself up to reflect that energy in the people around you. Or you attract that same energy to you. If people who are prepared in their own ways, like everybody might not be prepared at the exact same checkpoints that you are. But that's the whole point. It's supposed to be a variation. It's supposed to be, you know, diversity within that, right? Like my one friend a long time ago, he had said something about, like, everybody in my network is teachers right now. That's not how it's supposed to be. And so the network idea was a limited viewpoint based on, like, jobs. But yeah, it should be based on your skills and resources and what you have access to. And everybody should bring something different around you. But you can't even worry about who's bringing stuff around you. You gotta first worry about, like, what do you do? What strengths can you play upon? What do you know that you're not gonna have the space to understand at the moment? I ain't even talking about, like, how many things that you can label to do right now. I ain't talking about it from that standpoint. Like, oh, I gotta learn how to do this, I gotta learn how to do that. unless that's like your groove to like ingest information like that. But given what you like to do, given what you're good at, given what motivates you, what you feel comes easy to you, how can you translate that to other skills? How can you translate that to sustainable action in a system, well, outside of a system, right? How do you translate what you already good at across multiple genres of ideas or whatever? That's where you start. Start with what your body already knows, what your muscles already remember, what your brain is already cued to think about, and just shift how that operates. Instead of putting pressure on you not knowing how to do X, Y, Z, although basic things like start a fire, filter water, those should be right on your list of things to know how to do. Learn how to work a pum. I'm of the mindset need the skill, and I'd rather have the skill and not need it than need the skill and not have it. But that's me. And there are plenty of skills that I don't have that I am comfortable not having because I know I have village members that have them. And that at any time I am in a position to learn when I need to learn. Yeah, because that's another thought about that. Like, sometimes we get so typecast and narrow. He's gone to Kalamazoo. Yeah, Mark is going through something.
Interesting.
But yeah, so we get so like narrowly focused on what we're able to do, bring to the table, or what people can do, that we forget that we should all eventually learn how to do, impart the things that other people can do. Like I know in like the business world and some of these organizations, people have let me act so that they know I'm not replaceable because can't nobody do it like I do it type deal. And I understand from that perspective, like limited commodities and whatever, especially in a creative sense or whatever. But when we talk about sustainable village dynamics, it should be just in case this person is no longer with us, this is not a void anymore. That we all know how to fill this gap, or if this person is unable because of illness or they have to take on a new task or go somewhere else or involve themselves in something new, that there's somebody else to pick up the slack so that this parts can keep moving as a whole, you know. But that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother video. And I stopped eating because I'm full. Whew. Ethiopian food will fill you up. But yeah, that was my conversation for today. Just random. Just what you bring to your own table first. What you know. How do you shape yourself? How do you shape the people that are around you? How are you shaping your village dynamics? Not based out of fear either. Like sometimes we get into fear, like the what if scenarios, but this should be how it operates at its best when shit is not hitting the fan. Village dynamics is how it sustains itself. It's just how we don't get caught in the loop again and again, generation after generation. This is how we exit out, and this is how we sustain ourselves without it. And so it's like it shouldn't be like a fear-based reaction, like we only doing this because we have to, because we got forced against the wall to. And some people will only pick up that knowledge if it came down to it because of that scenario. Some people will not get to this just because. Some folks, it's kind of like some people learn by listening. Some people are visual learners. They just learn by watching. And some people are kinesthetic. And so even with these scenarios, that's when it comes to urgency, pushing people to do things, right? Some people are not internally motivated. They're externally motivated by factors around them. And then externally motivated to the point where they have to touch it, feel it, and know that it's real for them to act on it. So some people won't have to touch the fire to know that it's hot, right? And that's just where they are with how they process And we can't get caught up in those people whose lessons is that's how it get to them. But in terms of how we shift our whole thought process as a unit, how do we reflect this largely? Knowing that doing these things, maintaining this within each other, maintaining these ideas within ourselves, you know, putting the energy into it these ways, like with making it, with your hands, with connecting to it, you know, that's how we sustain ourselves. That's how we reshift what it means to be a community of people. Like, innovations will be there. That's nothing wrong with those things. There's nothing wrong with some of even the technology that is used. It is what our motivation for using them, right? How connected or disconnected do we get from our source or whatever? How disconnected do we get from each other, or connected do we get to each other? How do the tools we use allow us to continue to grow in a sustainable way? Or does it just deplete us in the end, where we have to feed it more energy, more bodies, more people than it is putting out energy, than we're able to receive from it? Or is it getting sequestered somewhere else and funneled to a few, you know? So I'm going to stop speaking a little bit of code or whatever. But just find you friends, one that can grow. Learn from them. Find you friends that like to trade and barter. Reshift your understanding of what it means to be connected to the most natural part of this planet. And it's a beautiful place if you allow yourself to see it that way. And that's, I guess, the best thing about being here in the fall up north. Like, it could be cold as a motherfucker. God, bones be cold. But watching these leaves change, watching, like, whole, you know, forests become like fire. Like, it looks like fire for some of these things. Like, lit up, burning bright. And it's just cool, you know. Like, I went to an apple orchard where the apples was just falling and falling and falling and falling on the ground. Nobody's touching them. Not a soul. And the birds and the squirrels pick up the apples, carry the seeds, and then there's apple trees growing all through the woods as you walk down the path. Nobody's touching the apples. They falling. You know, they're supplying the earth with, you know, bio waste to become good soil. Seeds to become new fruit. But the abundance is all around us, y'all. Tap into it. All right, peace and blessings.